Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? All right, Saints coming off a win. Putting together a nice little winning streak right now. Got an opportunity to go into their open date, go into their bye on a 3-game winning streak if they can win at Minnesota. Interestingly, today, who was this over at I think this was Fowler. It was Jeremy Fowler, who over at ESPN.com spoke anonymously to some NFL executives to kind of get their feeling on every division and who might win it at this point. And in the NFC South, I don't think this will surprise anyone. It was sort of an anyone's guess. I'll just read. It's really quick. I'll read it for you because there's two things of note. The only thing that's certain is that the Panthers aren't, contending this year. He writes, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, New Orleans Saints, and Atlanta Falcons have shown glimpses of playoff potential. The Saints are considered the safest bet of the group now that Derek Carr looks more comfortable in the offense over the past 2 weeks. Quote, defense is sound, physical, big, offensive line very good. Their running backs and wide receivers are dynamic, an AFC personnel man said of New Orleans. Quote, QB is streaky. They'd be a 12-4 team if he were more consistent, in my opinion. End quote. By the way, they play 17 games now, not 16, AFC personnel man. But I do understand that old habits die hard. Basically saying that the Saints would be a 12-win team as they exist now if Derek Carr were more consistent. Yet another person independently within the NFL, not high on Derek Carr, just worth noting there, but saying that the Saints are really the safest bet of the group, and that actually does play out. If you look at the updated betting odds, this is from our friends over at DraftKings, they have the betting odds for all of the division winners, and the New Orleans Saints, as of right now, are at minus 165 to win the NFC South. So Saints at minus 165, Falcons at plus 190. The Bucs are third at plus 600, and then the Panthers are plus 15,000. I mean, I think we all understand the Panthers are bringing up the rear of the entire NFL. But the Saints at minus 165, pretty decided favorite there over Atlanta to win the NFC South at this point over at DraftKings. And when you look at the remaining strength of schedule, Tankathon always publishes and keeps up with the remaining strength of schedule, and this is based on your opponent's win-loss record. So if you look right now at the remaining strength of schedule, the easiest remaining strength of schedule, Atlanta Falcons, their opponent's combined winning percentage is .362. The second to easiest remaining strength of schedule, the New Orleans Saints. Opponents' combined winning percentage at .406. The most difficult opponents left are the Lions and the Vikings. And Minnesota, you're going to face Minnesota with Joshua Dobbs at quarterback, not Kirk Cousins. So the 2 games you have remaining against projected playoff teams, or your toughest opponents, I guess we should even say, one of them, you're going to be facing a guy that's been there for a week. And you're not going to face their starting quarterback. For what it's worth, Atlanta easiest, New Orleans, then Tampa, the third easiest remaining schedule. But interestingly, after that, so all the NFC South teams, the 4th easiest remaining schedule. How about the Detroit Lions? You want to buy stock on a team right now? How about Detroit? I mean, a team that looks like they're going to run away with that division and has the 4th easiest remaining schedule of any team in the NFL here at the halfway point. Detroit is a team that you may want to jump on board if you haven't already. So the New Orleans Saints are in a really good spot right now. Looking ahead, when you look at their schedule, offense starting to come together a little bit as they decided. And defensively, maybe the most encouraging thing is for a team that was among the worst in the NFL a year ago at taking the ball away, this year is been one of the best at creating turnovers and takeaways. It's something that the New Orleans Saints were very intentional on this offseason, was creating takeaway opportunities. Of course, they were +5 against the Chicago Bears. But even Dennis Allen, was asked about this on Monday when he met with reporters at his press conference, what has led to that spike in takeaways?
I think we've probably done a better job of putting an emphasis on it. We started off the defensive meetings last week showing, how takeaways are created, in our league. And so I think you saw some of that during the game, guys searching out opportunities to take the ball away. And then, look, I think part of it is I think guys have made the plays that they have an opportunity to make.
For whatever it's worth, the Saints right now are +8 on the season. Look, a +5 day against Chicago will certainly help, but the Saints are +8 on the season. They have 12 interceptions. That leads the NFL. So your secondary has been very opportunistic. Paulson Adebo was awesome the other day. The Marcus May interception was great. You've also gotten 6 fumble recoveries. And then your giveaways are what have neutralized it a bit because you've thrown 5 interceptions and you've lost 5 fumbles. So you're +8 overall. You've gotten 18 takeaways, but you've given it away 10 times. So your +8 turnover margin is second best in the NFL, behind only Cincinnati and the Chargers. But when you look at your total takeaways, you lead the NFL. The Saints and the Jacksonville Jaguars each have 18 takeaways, which leads the NFL. What was such a giant talking point a year ago, the inability to create turnovers and advantageous situations for your offense, that's flipped on its head. Another reason why when you do lead the NFL in takeaways, but you're sitting here one game over 500 at 5-4, it's a little hard to explain, hard to stomach, because when you're that good, you should be much better. So the Saints at +8 with 18 takeaways. I mean, keep in mind, Jacksonville, you're right there with Jacksonville +18. And Jacksonville's running away with their division right now at 6-2. If the Saints, I get it, hindsight's 20/20, you can't cry for spilled milk, but you blew opportunities to win games on the road against Green Bay and Houston. And how drastically different does the whole outlook of your season feel if you had found a way to get those 2 games and you're at 7-2 right now instead of 5-4? Maybe you do resemble more of a contender instead of a team that's going to finish in the middle of a jumbled mess of the NFL and the NFC. So if it were to go down today, by the way, which is, I always find it's interesting when you look at what a projected playoff scenario might look like in the NFC. If it were to happen today, the Saints would be the 4 seed, obviously as a division winner. So the Eagles, Lions, Niners, Saints would be your top 4. Seattle, Dallas, Minnesota would be the other playoff teams today. So Philly would have the bye. The Lions would play the Vikings. The Niners would play Dallas. And the Saints would host a wild card round game against the Seattle Seahawks. And I don't hate your chances against Seattle in the Dome. I mean, the worst case scenario would be running up against a team like Dallas, who at their best is one of the best teams in the NFL. They've been inconsistent, but we've seen them at times this year roll. But they're not going to win their division because Philly's the best team in the NFL right now. Minnesota, I would have told you, would have been a greater concern as a team that didn't win its division because the Lions run away with it. Minnesota with a healthy Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson and all that stuff coming to the Dome, that would have been a decidedly more difficult task, I think, than beating Seattle in the Superdome if it comes down to that. Look, we had half a season to play, but sometimes it's fun to look at how all this stuff may play out. So the Saints right now in the catbird seat at 5-4 in the NFC South, sole possession of first place in the division, heading into a game at Minnesota where you're going to face a backup quarterback before you go into your bye week, and then you're at Atlanta. By the time you come out of the bye, if you go beat Atlanta, the Saints, man, I mean, the Saints could put this thing away mid-December, which is amazing to think. But then again, it's the challenge of finding consistency when you have been a notoriously inconsistent team. See if they can go up to Minnesota and get a win this weekend against Joshua Dobbs and the Minnesota Vikings. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.